Looking for accelerated career growth? Apply for open consulting roles at Palmtree today. Palmtree is a consulting firm with a private equity mindset. The firm focuses exclusively on M&A and the private equity investment lifecycle, helping clients maximize value while increasing bandwidth to source deals and raise capital. At Palmtree, you'll work with seasoned veterans from investment banking, consulting, Big Four accounting, and private equity. In addition, you'll learn the ins and outs of private equity and M&A advisory by working closely with the firm's senior leadership. Palmtree provides a unique opportunity to break into the M&A industry and experience accelerated career growth. The firm's elite leadership team is led by professionals who have worked in private equity, investment banking, Big Four accounting, strategy consulting at MBB, and corporate finance. The sky is truly the limit at Palmtree. Ready to love your work again? Learn more about Palmtree, see open roles, and apply today on the careers page at palmtreellc.com or click the link in the show notes.
Welcome to this episode of Strategy Simplified. I'm delighted to bring you our first in a series of conversations with Palmtree, a leader in M&A finance consulting and advisory services. Palmtree has been expanding rapidly, roughly tripling their employee count over the past few years and becoming a leading voice in middle market M&A. Today we get to speak with Rouzheen, an SVP in Palmtree's financial due diligence area. Rouzheen's going to help us understand more about this area and Palmtree's TNT and investment bank areas as well. I particularly want to call out that Palmtree is a unique firm where you could get exposure and experience to both consulting and investment banking in the same role and without the same lifestyle consequences. Stay tuned to hear more. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Rouzheen, welcome to Strategy Simplified. We are so excited to talk with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You get to help us kick off an ongoing set of discussions where we get to learn a little bit more about Palmtree and the work that you do. Could you kick us off here by giving us just a brief bio on yourself?
Sure. So I'm a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, CPA by trade. Started my career with Ernst & Young, so jumped into public accounting immediately after school. Did specifically the audit practice for several years, then transitioned to the transaction support group. I think it's now called the deal group. Essentially, that's how I got introduced to mergers and acquisitions. Primarily focused on financial due diligence, so pre-acquisition analysis. Then wanted to see the whole breadth of the transactions, so looked for a job outside of public accounting. And that's when I started working for a public Fortune 150 company called AECOM. They were based out of Los Angeles, which is what took me out to LA from Texas. And they were very acquisitive and had a lot of divestitures, so I continued my M&A practice there. And then I jumped back into the middle market, and that's where I found Palmtree. At the time, it was 2019. We were about 30-ish people, and jumpstart to 2022. We've been through a pandemic and we are almost at, I don't even know now. I think we're pushing 100 employees. So it's been a very exciting growth. So excited to be a part of it and bring in some of that background and expertise that I've developed and bring into the group.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And we're excited to hear you more, talk more about the group. So give us just a little bit of an intro about Palmtree overall, the type of work that you do, who you work with, your industries and practice areas.
Sure. So I think in essence, you can always Google a company, kind of get the gist of it from their website. But at the end of the day, we're a group of people that are a bunch of problem solvers. We see the spaghetti bowl and try to find some kind of order in it to straighten it out, to clean it up, and to create value. That's the kind of the 30,000 foot view of what we do. Once you actually go into the website and understand where the business and the consulting actually happens, we are of three branches or three pillars. Internally, we have the financial due diligence practice. We have the T&T practice, which is called transitions and transformations. And then we have the investment bank. So that's kind of the groups that become as more structured or separated as we possibly can be. But in practice, it meshes all together because it all bleeds into the life of the transaction or the transaction life cycle. And that's where we get our tagline, transactions, transitions, transformations. It really does interlace as far as our services, because I can come in pre-transaction, do what I do, and gain a lot of knowledge and understand, oh, there's some implementation and work that we can do post-close. And that's where the T&T group comes in. And then down the line, the bank could potentially help that company either work on a sale, or, the transaction maybe started with the bank and they were looking for the consulting side of the practice to come in to help with that business and prepare it for sale. So it's a very intermingled, a service providing company, but essentially that tagline of transactions, transitions, transformations is what kind of encompasses what we do.
That absolutely helps bring it more to life.
Good.
On the website, the language that exists just below that is Palm Tree is an M&A consulting and advisory firm born out of private equity. So does that mean that the work was once exclusively in private equity and now is broader than that? Or, help me understand that a little bit better.
Yes. Is the simple answer, I think. I think you could say the work was born out of private equity, but you could also say that the individuals were actually born out of private equity. Not at the moment anymore, because we've grown and people have come in from different backgrounds, but that's where it first started. Individuals that were sitting in the private equity desks and offices and really understanding what those particular companies were looking for. But at this point, we've taken that knowledge and expanded it. I like to kind of think about the way Palm Tree is now as we've all kind of come in with our specific puzzle pieces, and our jagged little edges have all fit in perfectly all together. And I keep kind of, no one's actually seeing me on the podcast if they're listening to it, but everything just kind of meshes and fits together. It turns into a circle or a cycle of M&A consulting, because ultimately what Palm Tree likes to do is come in, identify where the holes are in the big picture of the quilt of the company that needs us, and we kind of fit in where those holes are and help them create a perfect and complete view.
So much of our listener base is interested in consulting. They're thinking about generalist pathways in strategy or operations consulting, or maybe going a slightly more specialized route from an industry or functional perspective. How would you say that M&A consulting that Palm Tree does, where does it fit in terms of the overall consulting landscape?
Well, I think our niche is that middle market. As I mentioned to you before, my background is in public accounting, and then I had some actual public company experience. And both of those jobs were very consulting based, even the in-house M&A side of a public company, because you're constantly going project by project and trying to understand what the problems are and trying to fix them as you go. With Palm Tree, the specificity or the view that we have is in that middle market space. And this, to be a little presumptuous and think that your listeners are looking to me for advice, I'm going to jump and assume that. But if I kind of had this crystal ball when I left college, I would have jumped into middle markets so much sooner. I'm very grateful for the path that led me here and the experiences that I did have, but I am somewhat envious of our analysts that come in and get to experience that middle market experience firsthand, because it's so hands-on. There is no 7 layers of review and then ultimately you're exposed to the client or then you're exposed to the target. you're right there. You're hand in hand with the person who, sweat, blood, and tears began the business, or you're there with your client who's really trying to evaluate the business and how to either get a better deal or make sure they're not buying a lemon. You are in the weeds and you're kind of in the trenches with your client. You sort of get that experience, I think, when you're in the bigger consulting firms. I think it's at a different level and a different pace. With the middle market and kind of where we play, there's no, play your small role and then maybe take a step up. It's get your in there, roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and learn as you go quickly.
So I'm just, you've mentioned middle market a couple of times. One standard definition might be a business in the range of $10 million to $1 billion. Is that the way that you define middle market at Palm Tree?
Yeah, it's generally either top line or an EBITDA bottom line type of view. And so if I was thinking a 10 million top line company would probably not be in the middle market, but I guess, we wouldn't turn them away. But absolutely, we tend to stay in the, high tens to the 500, 800 million of top line revenue. That just seems to be what kind of comes into our sweet spot. But we've definitely had ranges on both sides, depending on kind of the size of the clients and the targets that they're taking a look at.
I understand, Rouzheen, that your primary focus area is financial due diligence.
That's right.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that and Palm Tree's approach in this area?
Sure. I recently spoke to a women in finance group at Stanford, and I was working with a colleague who is renowned for his analogies, and I feel like this one worked the best. So if you're thinking about financial due diligence, and for anyone who's looking for a home in this crazy market, this will ring very close to home. If you're looking to buy a home, you're essentially the private equity company who's looking to buy a company. When you're going into that, you're going to go take a look at the house. You're going to go potentially put in an offer, and you bring in an inspector to take a look at the home to make sure that the pipes are good, the foundation's good, etc. I am that inspector for the business. I come in with my quote unquote checklist, which is all accounting based. And I take a look at the financials and make sure that we don't have a dud. We don't have any hidden, the holes in the ground and the foundation is off, or they haven't been accounting for something properly. Because ultimately what happens is our clients, at least on the FDD side, have gone either to a lender or some insurance company or something, or even their own investors, and said, look, we're underwriting this as an investment, and here's our validation for this being a good investment. And that's where we come in and help them with that underwriting process. So it's really incumbent on us to ensure that the financials that have been presented are either accurate or we are adjusting them to as accurate as they could be. And we're also evaluating what that run rate will be so that they can have an idea of what were those one-time items that will probably not continue going forward, and removing that noise to really understand what that cash flow of that business would be.
As you go through this work and process, do you normally end up on the end of the spectrum of just verification and validation of what was already there? Or do you often find things that need to be brought into a new perspective, the numbers change, and that helps lead to different decision making?
Sure. The trust but verify phrase is a big one. And it really depends on how the business prepared itself for sale. If they thought ahead and brought in maybe a Palm Tree, maybe an investment bank, maybe someone else to help them build up their financials and really present it in the best foot forward, then that makes our job a lot easier. We can leverage the work that has already been done. It's a lot more verification than it is us actually digging in the weeds and trying to normalize. But if it's a company that, just up and decided, look, I'm done, I want to retire, I'm going to sell this business, and I haven't done anything with my financials as far as a cleanup or a look back, they have no audit, they have no review, they have no compilation, that one would take a lot more time. And it's not just validation, but oh, you are not recognizing your revenue properly, and recasting that whole P&L essentially, and taking a look at what that business would have been like had they implemented the right accounting policies.
Which I imagine is going to be quite an eye-opening process, to the leadership of that company as well.
Absolutely. Right? And that's exactly, all of those pitfalls are what we try to address with both sides of the palm tree cycle. I think you'd mentioned, kind of who we're working with, and I primarily am looking at private equity as my clients, but it's my 80% private equity, 20% companies. On the investment bank side, it's the flip. They're almost 80% small businesses, companies, people that have sweat, blood, and tears into their actual business, 20% other financial firms. So depending on where of that cycle that you are really determines how to implement the palm tree way to create value. But because we kind of see both sides of that, all sides of that circle, it really makes us prepared and understand where the pitfalls could be, so that we can kind of position our client, whoever it is, in the best way forward.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Palm Tree has been growing significantly.
That's right.
As you think about bringing new people in now, are they automatically aligned to one of the three areas of the business, or do you work across areas? Do any of your colleagues work across those areas?
Yeah, we'd love the idea of a generalist, right? Because I think at certain levels below, so let's say the analyst and a senior analyst, maybe even associate level, we'd like for them, that's actually kind of our tagline of trying to promote people, is that we want you to experience all of the facets of palm tree. No one wants to be pigeonholed early on in their career. I think the folks that go into their universities and absolutely know what they want to do, and that's what they do. I mean, there's probably a few of those, but you're crazy. Like, either that, or you're just only pigeonholing yourself and not experiencing something else. So at least with what we can provide, we want individuals to be able to get that FDD background and then see what it's like in the T&T practice and really implement the asks of an office of a CFO, and then potentially go into an investment bank. And you don't necessarily have to be sleeping under your desk in a pillow in New York to get the iBanking experience. You can actually have a normal experience but still be in the weeds and in the trenches with some really smart people and understand how it works. I hope that answered your question. I think.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. That last piece is probably breaking news to some people, just really shaking their understanding, and also blending the lines between investment banking and consulting, right? There's a huge segment of prospective consultants or prospective iBankers who go through that decision-making process and may not have considered a sweet spot with a company like Palm Tree, where they get the chance to, interact in both types of roles. Right.
Like I said, and it may have just been, we were getting recruited by Big Four at the time, and everybody was, waving that fancy Big Four flag and whining and dine us, and going into that big industry and having the big clients just had so much flair to it. And it's great. It was a great experience. I think there's something to be said about building your career in that caliber and really understanding how things work. But boy, the middle market, it was just like the best kept secret of the finance and accounting world. So it's not for everybody. I mean, some people I think really thrive in that intense sleep under your desk type of environment, and more power to you if that's what you want to do.
We'll be right back after this quick message from our sponsor. Want to work in strategy consulting for a top firm? LEK Consulting is hiring now across its U.S. offices. LEK works on exciting growth strategy projects for the world's top companies, serving almost every sector and industry vertical. At LEK, You'll work on fast-paced engagements in small project teams with some of the brightest minds in the industry. If you're looking for the ideal blend of meaningful work and a tight-knit culture, LEK may be the perfect fit for you. To learn about open roles and to apply, click the link in the show notes or go to lek.com.
Let's make it practical and tangible a little bit. You talked how you're working middle market. That allows you to be close to the action. Mm-hmm. It allows people that you bring on board and on your teams to really have direct impact in terms of their relationship with the client and the impact of the work. You also mentioned how you overall take a strategy to help fill in the gaps where those gaps are needed for your clients. Right. But what is that? The combination of these things. What's the impact on the way that you structure your engagements and staff your teams? You can speak in generalities, or you can pick out a specific project or two. But what does that look like? How do you structure your projects and staff your teams?
Got it. And I'll focus more on the financial due diligence side because obviously that's where I live. But my engagements will generally be 3 individuals. Me overseeing the engagement, an associate or a senior associate that's kind of leading the day-to-day, and then an analyst that's actually building out the financial workbook. We live in Excel, love our numbers, love our quickies. It's always like a badge of honor to not use your mouse. And the analysts are the ones that then get the trial balance level information and really work through building our data book. If you're in the M&A practice or you've done any type of consulting work related to a private equity or acquisitions, you kind of know what a Q of E is, a quality of earnings. And that is what our ultimate output is. It can come into an Excel format. It can be a PDF report. But what it essentially is 3 columns, and it usually represents an annual period of the P&L. And it starts with EBITDA as reported, your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and goes down to EBITDA on a diligence adjusted or pro forma basis. So what that tells you is, look, here is the bottom line of the business, what your run rate is of what you need to run this business, and all of the adjustments above are the things that we identified during the diligence process. So that Q of E, or quality of earnings, is what our clients would ultimately take to lenders to say, hey, look, we brought in a third party to validate, the inspector for the house. They take it to any reps and warranty insurance companies to say, look, we've done our due diligence and here it is. And then for any type of, post-close, making sure that they're aligning with all their debt covenants, they take our work and kind of roll it forward with their modeling and things like that. Yeah.
On average, how long does it take for you to do the analysis to come up with the Q of E perspective?
On a super high end, turn it around quickly, no report, we can probably get something around in 2 weeks where it's just a preliminary view. Really tight, have gone through enough discussions with management to make sure that we didn't miss anything, I'd say on the 4-week side. So that range will obviously be shifted around based on how quickly we get the data. So we mentioned how sophisticated the sellers could potentially be. Now, if they've had someone helping them and they've got numbers ready to go, that obviously goes a little faster. The folks who, haven't closed their books in 6 months and, aren't really sure what an accounts receivable aging is, that might take a little longer.
And is it traditional that for your analysts and associates, they would be aligned to one engagement at a time or multiple?
Ideally, we don't want the analyst to be straddling too many. If it's one engagement, it's an engagement that really has them utilized fully. If it's a couple of engagements, they are generally in the same industry or client, or they're kind of staggered appropriately so that, they do a little extra work on this engagement and then move on to the next while they're waiting for the data to flow in. But on the analyst level, we don't really want them working more than 2 deals because we'd like them to stay focused. And that number tends to expand as you kind of move up, and kind of generally works that way because you have more capacity to be able to get into more of a review process, take on more deals. We have had the luxury of experiencing some really enormous M&A activity, probably from this time last year to now. Probably the most deals I've ever had in my career at one time. I don't think I've ever had as many deals as I've had now, which is really exciting. Because the struggle and also the kind of what keeps us up at night is always making sure the quality is still there. We are making sure that our reputation is still the most important thing, because we can't change that, right? Our clients rely on us to say, look, we've used Palmtree to give us a view of their financials. And so if that shakes in any way because we got too busy and that shook our quality, that's never a place we want to be. So that's a really important balance. So anytime we get so busy where we feel like we're knocking on that door, we kind of reel it back and make sure that the quality is still there. And that's really important to us.
Mm-hmm. So certainly you came from a career pathway as a specialist, right? You're a CPA, you spent time at a Big Four firm. But I anticipate that at the analyst and associate level at Palmtree, you're looking for, or that you may not only be looking for those specialists as well, correct?
That's correct. I certainly love the story of pulling people out of the public accounting world and telling them, look, there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it's for people who are really ready to shift and make that change, because I will fully say that there's just nothing comparable to getting that experience of going down that Big Four path. It's just not the only path. So we have had the pleasure of having individuals come straight out of undergrad, 0 public accounting experience, even very minimal accounting experience. I think we had one individual who's like a computer science engineer, but just because he had that, and I'll use this as the Palmtree, we should trademark this, but he had that frostiness, and because of that sense of like ability to roll up his sleeves and be a problem solver and be able to be such a good team player, he really picked it up quickly. Bless him. He didn't know what a debit and credit was, but he figured it out. And to be able to go into an FDD role and to figure it out as you go just requires a specific individual with a personality that's like, I'm going to sink or swim, and I'm going to do my damnedest to swim. And he did a great job. Yeah.
So those qualities of being willing to roll up your sleeves and dive in, certainly I'm sure intellectual curiosity about the work and the space.
Right.
You mentioned Palmtree being a group of problem solvers. It may be in one of those veins or something else, but what do you think about when what keeps you at Palmtree? Why do you like working there?
The work is really challenging and great. It's definitely refreshing and never the same kind of robotic type of process. I think also finding a corporation or a environment, or I'll just say it, a work family that aligns with your values and perspective, or at least just respects that other people have a different perspective, is what keeps me at Palmtree. The leadership, and I say this kind of vaguely because I think it trickles down to all facets of the business and the company. But if it wasn't for the leadership, I think the other people wouldn't have that same culture. It's the whole tone at the top thing, as I think my generation came to understand. It was very important because we came about in the times of Enron and WorldCom and understood what tone at the top meant and how badly it could get infected and the disease could go down. in that same breath, when you're very healthy at the top and very aware of what your shortcomings are and open and honest about that, it provides an environment where people are not afraid to provide feedback. It provides an environment where people are not afraid to say, I don't understand. Please help me, explain this to me. And then if you're asking those types of questions, then your client isn't asking those questions. So it's just adding value to our work product because no one's afraid to speak up and to collaborate and listen to each other.
You've already started to speak to this a little bit, but add on there in terms of why should people think about coming to work with you at Palm Tree?
If you're frosty, you got to apply. It's the frostiness, and I will give the credit to our dear MD Dave Walensky, who just started one day saying "Stay frosty" at the end of a meeting, and I think it's evolved on what that truly means, but I still don't really know what the full definition is, because being frosty is one thing, but staying frosty is also something else. So I think being frosty it has that connotation of rolling up your sleeves and getting in there and really problem solving. But staying frosty means you need to take care of yourself. You need to take a step back and make sure that you're ensuring that you have time to do work on your mental health, your physical health, your, eating well, or do whatever it is that's a priority in your life. That will maintain your staying of being of frosty, so that then you can be frosty. So it's really, it touches a lot of different factors, and that phrase just has become a cultural integration of our business, and actually has become one of our core values. So it's a really important part. So that's when we recruit, when we interview, there is no direct question you can ask, but those are the types of facets you're looking for when you're interviewing someone. So if you do feel like that's an environment you thrive in, I would say by all means apply. If you feel like you need to have the same thing over and over again, and that structure feels good to you, and that's that's the safe space for you, by all means find that. It's just probably not going to be at Palm Tree.
Fair enough. Lots of growth, lots of change, and you're still growing, you're still recruiting. Yes. What can you speak to at this moment about the type of people that you're looking to bring into the firm?
So the frostiness is important. I would say the accounting background is really, really helpful. It just kind of gives you that leg up to be able to speak the language of a business. It's not a deal breaker, but it certainly helps you speak the language and on all fronts, on the banking side, on the TNT side, and the FDD side. Having that accounting and finance understanding and just being able to speak the language is super helpful. Having Excel skills, whether that's a couple of formulas, but shortcut keys, just really being able to navigate. And I would say in hindsight, one of the best things that worked for me was just being able to trace how things were done. And you can kind of teach yourself what's the best practices going forward, or Palm Tree can help you there. But if you don't know how an Excel sheet works, or how to build one and just kind of open it up and work with formulas and set something up, that's something you can Google, you can look on YouTube. It just kind of do some self-care when it comes to what finance consulting would require.
And someone who's looking to go into your recruitment process, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Be honest. There's no need to hide things. I will say that when I was looking for the next move in my career, and I updated my resume, and I hadn't done it in a long time, I decided to put that I was a mom at the very bottom. Probably not something that a lot of people put, but then I kind of, in hindsight, thinking about it, I don't think I wanted to be a part of a company that saw that and thought, oh, we don't want her. So that was a really good way for me to filter out companies, and maybe it was a good way for companies to filter me out. But Palm Tree leaned in. They immediately asked about who the kid was and really invested in it. And it wasn't just, background of FDD or background of whatever I've done in the M&A field, but really getting to know me as a person. So personally, when I look at interview resumes and I'm interviewing someone, I love the bottom section where I get the little tidbits of what you do outside of your day-to-day. So being honest about who you are and what you want to do, and kind of where you see yourself and how you can add value because you've done your research and you've done a little bit of due diligence about the business and the company, that goes a long way.
Well, Rouzheen, that is a fantastic transition as we, of course, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your work and your firm, but we always like to get to know our guests on a personal level as well. So we'll just close out here with a couple of additional personal questions. So could you share one thing about what do you like about living in Texas? We've already heard you've gotten to live a few different places, of course. Right now you're in Texas. What do you like about it?
That's right. I have had the honor of being in a lot of different states and cities, but nothing beats my Texas tacos. I'm a very big fan of everything's bigger in Texas, but especially our tortillas. we do tortillas well here, and also I went to the University of Texas, so a lot of college friends still live here. So I've gotten to basically come back and reconnect with college buddies who are all now moms and dads, and all of our kids play. So it's a really valuable time in my life. I'm really excited to be back.
What is a favorite memory of that part of your life, from your time at, Texas McCombs?
Yeah, I for all the sports fans out there, I was at the University of Texas from 2003 to 2008. So we had a pretty exciting national championship at the time, but it wasn't the national championship that was my favorite memory. It was the couple of games before, early on in the season, where it really became, and everyone started saying, oh, maybe Texas could take this. We beat Ohio State in Ohio, and I have never seen Austin like this. People just came out of their apartments and dorms, and the entire city just got overwhelmed with all these people. And it was just this massive party. And my now husband asked for my phone number that night. So it worked out really well.
Multiple great reasons why that would be a favorite memory. I love that. Well, you are a leader now at Palm Tree. You've gotten to accomplish a lot professionally. You're a mom. What's still something that you're looking for in the future? What's something on your bucket list that you're hoping to do?
It's a really good question. And this is going to sound super pretentious, but I'd like to say that I have hit all the things that I really like, and I'm really content with where I am. But I will, I guess, share that I'm hoping for my 40th that I will be on a boat somewhere and off of, I'm not sure which island, but that's kind of where I want to be for at least a week without the kids.
Ooh, a week off from work and without the kids. Well, I wish you the best in coordinating that, Rouzheen.
Thank you.
And we just want to thank you again for spending the time today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and get to know more about the firm.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today. Check out the show notes for more information about Palm Tree, who they're hiring, and how to apply. As Rouzheen shared, an accounting background is strongly preferred, but at its core, Palm Tree is looking for problem solvers who are interested and curious to apply themselves to this type of work, and those who will stay frosty. Make sure to stay tuned for our upcoming conversations with Palm Tree to learn more about the firm as well, and check out Management Consultants' resources to help you on your recruiting journey. All the information is in the show notes. We'll see you next time.